Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3D Printing and Painting live stream. I haven't done a stream, and it's been a little over a month now, I guess, but it's a new year, and it's time to get hot and heavy this year and come out with a lot of cool content and have interesting people on my stream. And I'd like to thank StreamYard for sponsoring this video, and ZYLTECH also for being a sponsor of my video today. And today I've got Michael Laws from the Teaching Tech on. He's down in Australia, and he has an awesome YouTube channel, a lot of really great content. And I thought you guys might like to meet him and ask him questions. So let me bring him in. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Hi, Jerry. Well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, thank you very much for being on my stream.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, every time I start a stream, I kind of get the jitters and get nervous. And right now I've got a cramp in my back. It's really odd. I guess it's my nerves. So.
Yep, that's no good at all. I'm sure it'll go.
Anyway, yeah, I'm glad I could have you on today. I remember back on October 4th, it was on Facebook, I had PM'd you about being on my stream. You PM'd me back 2 days later, but I didn't see it until like a week ago. I don't know what happened or how I lost it, but then I seen it. We finally touched base, and now you're here. Yep. And this is really awesome to have you on the channel. So
yep, we got there in the end. Yeah, it's good to be on. Thanks. It's my channel New Year's resolution to do a lot more community engagement this year. So yeah, you're the first one of the year. So thanks for creating the opportunity for me.
Awesome. Yeah, I love all the work you do. Whenever I want to see some technical data or learn something, I usually don't Google it. I go on YouTube and I watch you or a few other people to see what they're talking about and what you're building. And you got some really awesome information. I'd like to thank Ken Sturrock for being here, Betty Boop 45, Gadget Angel. That's all at the moment. We've got 9 people here and only a few people are commenting, but there'll be a lot more people that'll watch this later and tomorrow. I'd like to ask you, what got you interested in 3D printing a few years ago? How'd all that come about?
Okay, well, my first experience with 3D printing was actually back in 2004. So I finished school in 2000 and then went straight to uni. I did industrial design. And in my last year at uni, the uni got a big 3D printer. I think it was worth about 80,000 Australian. And I could kind of picture it in my head. It was like a massive box, took up a whole corner of a room. Mm-hmm. And it was a big novelty. So my final year major project was this hospitality trolley, which is actually really boring in hindsight. But I got to 3D print a little prototype scale version of it. And I think it was quite expensive. And I remember it came back surrounded in support, and it took me a good half an hour with pliers to peel all that off. But yeah, that was my first experience. And then early on in my teaching career, I think it was 2012, 2013, we ordered a MakerBot Replicator 1 for my school. And I thought, this is pretty good, got to have one at home. So I jumped on the bandwagon and I got a Solidoodle 2 Pro for home. And that's what got me started. And that was my primary printer at home for years and years. I had a couple of other little ones here and there, but I didn't really jump in until I started the channel buying and testing a lot of different ones.
Mm-hmm. You teach elementary or primary, correct?
Yep. I've just finished up after 11 years of that. So having a break to do YouTube more or less full time. But yeah, trained as a high school teacher, and then the last few years I've been STEAM coordinator. So that's all the buzz in Australia at least. So science, technology, engineering, art, maths. So my job was to roll out basically technology lessons to all the primary school kids. And that was a really enjoyable part of my job.
Yeah, teachers are underappreciated and underpaid, because if it wasn't for teachers, nobody in the entire planet would know how to do anything. So, I thank you for your service. So
thanks.
It's great that you're a teacher.
I think depends what countries. I think in some countries they're really highly revered in society, other countries not so much.
I remember here in the US, I'm 55 now, but when I was in junior high school, 7th, 8th, and 9th, you could take wood shop, welding shop, and you could learn how to use a torch, how to use saws, cut things. And nowadays, I believe they've taken all that out of schools because the teachers want to work in the construction industry where they make big money and the teaching jobs don't pay enough. And that's a shame.
Yeah, in Australia, it's really hard to hire a teacher in our subject area that's workshop qualified, that knows how to use all of the things that you've mentioned. So definitely something that's trending this way as well.
I got a question from Gadget Angel. To print PC on an Ender 3 Pro, what would I need to upgrade on the printer?
Okay, so limitation is probably going to be the hot end and the bed. So depending on the polycarbonate, the temperatures are going to be up somewhere around ABS. And because on an Ender 3, the PTFE tube from the Bowden tube goes down into the nozzle, you might not, when you heat it up high enough for that filament, you might not notice it straight away, but it might be off-gassing, it might be degrading over time. So that's where changing to something like a micro Swiss all metal hot end, which I had a video on, and I think there's some other options, probably some from China as well. Yes, it's all metal, but the PTFE tube only goes in the top. So therefore, the bit that's hot, where the filament's melting, there's no PTFE tubing. You don't have to worry about off-gassing or anything like that. The other thing is the bed, depending on the brand you're printing, you might need glue stick, I've just got some Dimafix rub-on glue for those type of filaments, but they do warp a lot. So a high bed temperature and maybe a temporary enclosure if, yeah, you definitely want a warm environment. And that's another thing I'll be covering in the near future as well. I've got a Creality and a Wham Bam temporary zip-up enclosure that you put around the printer. And I'll be testing some before and after for each of those in a back-to-back to see how much of a difference they make in printing these high-temp filaments that like to warp.
Here's another quick question from Gadget Angel. If I had a V6 and direct drive and AC bed, what else?
If they already had those things. Well, the AC bed should let you get up to temperature. The V6 is already all metal. So probably just the material you have on top of your bed in terms of adhesion with that filament and then temporary enclosure. You can get away with a big cardboard box, or people use garbage bags, all sorts of things. You just want to keep that heat in as much as possible.
We have one person that I see joining us at the moment on Facebook that made a comment, and they said, "Hi there, guys. I think on Facebook there's something you have to click on to accept, and then we can see your name, your Facebook name online. Otherwise, it's just going to have a generic, say, Facebook user, but I'm not sure exactly what you click on, but there's something you accept there for the stream." Would an enclosure need an active heater? Yes. You need to have a heated bed at the very least to keep the temperature in. I print with ABS occasionally, and it's got to be kept in an enclosure. Otherwise, you have layer separation or the corners might peel.
Yeah, I agree with that. Pretty interesting ways to heat it. You can use a hairdryer. Some people just use lights, so not LEDs, but more old school, like halogen lights that generate their heat, and they find that's enough to keep everything hot enough on the inside. Other people, depending on the filament and how much it warps, might find that the heat from the nozzle and the heated bed are enough as long as it's sealed well.
I had a person on my channel about a year ago argue with me in a comment saying that he doesn't need an enclosure for ABS and his prints come out perfect, but I know that you'll have layer separation. They won't come out perfect. And even if they bond to the bed and don't lift, if you have a big enough brim, you can see you'll still have issues. But I finally agreed and I said, okay, I'm not trying to be Mr. Know-It-All, but I just let it go. I didn't want to argue about it.
Yeah, my experience, I would agree with that. Some stuff with ABS you can print no problems, open frame. Depends on the geometry. So it's all to do with the shrinkage. If you have a large solid bit and a wide footprint, as it shrinks in the middle, it's going to peel up the edges towards the center. So in your geometry, if you're designing the part yourself, sometimes you can strategically put voids and cutouts and holes to release that pressure as it shrinks on itself, but it's still going to be an uphill battle.
And my backdrop today, everybody, as usual, it's a green screen, and this is a Google picture I got of Las Vegas on New Year's Eve here a few days ago. So that's our Happy New Year right there in the backdrop. If anyone is wondering when that's when it's from, because it's obvious it's Las Vegas. And then I did a video I released a couple days ago on a Mandalorian helmet that I printed and painted from Nikko Industries. And in the video, when I show the inside where I glued in the shield, it was dark on the camera, and I failed to show a picture with a light on it. So I've got the helmet here, and I wanted to show it on the video so people could see it. Oops. And it came out really good. And on the inside, you can kind of see how I've taped it there. I've got aluminum tape. I bought a roll quite a while back. I use it on my heated beds when I insulate them on my CR10s, and the aluminum tape works really well. I just kind of tacked it in. I could go completely around it and tape it better, but that holds it real well. And that's how I taped it in. And then the shield is a clear safety shield off of Amazon. And then I put window tinting on it because I didn't want to buy a tinted shield. One, they were hard to find, and then they were like, $20. But came out real good. I'm happy with it. There are minor layer lines, but
amazing.
there's nothing that bad on it. It's really super minor. So, in one photo on a group on Facebook, a person said, "It looks like you photoshopped your picture." Well, here's a helmet, and no, I didn't Photoshop it. This is a helmet. So, but it came out real good.
Probably the best compliment you can get, that type of feedback.
Oh, that it was Photoshopped. Yeah, I said thank you very much, but no, it's not. Let's see. Oh, and I just bought off of ZYLTECH. I bought a Hypercube Evolution. It's 400 by 400 by 500 build volume, and I'm not sure exactly which ramps board is on it, which control board is on it, but I hear that I want to go to 32-bit on it, and I was wondering, in your opinion, what would be the other than with the TH3D, which hasn't reviewed that printer and it's not set up for it. So let's say Bigtree Check, for instance, which board might you recommend that I buy for that?
Sure. I've got a couple of boards here. So previously, before the Bigtree Check one, something like an MKS Gen L would have been pretty good. And the reason it's so good compared to Creality factory boards and things like that is there's a lot of inputs and outputs here. So for instance, 5 stepper motor drivers instead of 4, so supports dual extrusion, things like that, or even the thermistor input to things like this. If you're not running a second extruder, you can use for heated chambers, so it gives you flexibility. Also, end stops, 3 min, 3 max. So again, if you're not running max end stops, it's still extra ports for running filament, run out sensors, whatever else you wanted to run. MOSFETs on these, generally not bad, good connectors. But now we have more or less an equivalent, the Bigtree Check one. You can see the footprint is actually exactly the same on those. So this Bigtree Check, this is an SKR version 1.3. It's more or less this, but with a 32-bit board. And there's other products in this ecosystem that match that, like touchscreens and whatever else. Potentially, if you are really serious, this is the SKR Pro. I haven't tested this on any of my printers yet because I don't think I have anything really beefy enough to justify it. But it's got six outputs for stepper motor drivers, so you can run triple extrusion. You can see the terminals for the power inputs are massive screw terminals, like you might use spade bits on like automotive applications. And I'm not sure if you can read that, but on the back, you can have dedicated power supply inputs for your motors, your heated bed, your overall power, and again, a lot of different input-output pins for various things you wanted to add on. So these are a little bit more expensive. I think they're 50 or 60 US, whereas the 1.3, I think 30 odd. This is probably cover most printers, but you might want to look for the version 1.4 instead, because there's a bunch of accessories that are coming out with that, including a plug-in Wi-Fi adapter. So it's kind of like having Octoprint built into it from the start. So I've got one of those on the way, and I'm keen to test it out.
Now, if I forget what you told me, I'm not going to take notes. I'll go back and watch the video, and I'll just write down, what you said and go from there. And that's through what, AliExpress or Amazon locally there in Australia, or?
Amazon is in Australia, but it's not very well established. So if I go on Amazon and I find something I like, quite often it'll say not available to send to Australia. So I include the links because the majority of my audience is from the States. But if I want something like this, I'll order it from AliExpress, or if I can find it a local place on eBay, then I'll get it in a reasonable time frame.
And when you're not printing for your channel, hats or helmets, vases and such, you like to do lots of things around the house, useful prints. I see you sent me a few pictures here if I could pull them up.
Sure. So, this question was asked in my Q&A video as well. I'm not generally printing things to save me from buying. I'm printing things that I can't buy. So for instance, that's a little trolley that clips onto the front of a go-kart, just so I can lift it up from one end without scratching the frame and then, wheel it around the house. So I don't know if that exists to buy, but, I could make it very cheaply. That's a key fob for a drift trike. All of these have been featured on the channel, some of them a long time ago, and I'm going to finish them off this year, I hope. Again, that particular kid's drift trike repurposed, to have an electric motor, that part just doesn't exist. So 3D printing is absolutely perfect for creating those custom parts because you just couldn't do it any other way. Not cheaply, at least. You'd have to hire someone else to design and machine it for you.
This next print, I think this is a Vive controller, right?
Yeah, that's a tracker. So
tracker. Okay.
Yep, I got a lot of hobbies, and one that I'm hoping to have more time to do is sim racing. So the chair that it's on moves a little bit, and you find if it moves you forward, the game thinks that you're ducking forward, so that you have turned on, and it compensates for the motion. So that way, when you turn your head side to side, it registers that, but it doesn't register the whole chair moving and make it seem like you're about to go through the windscreen. And again, that's, how else would you mount that? You tape it over the chair or something like that. So 3D printing, that's a pretty simple design on the CAD. 3D print it, you've got a part that you couldn't buy from the shops. And that's probably where I find it most useful.
Yeah, I have a Vive headset, and then I got an Odyssey 2 that I play different games with, and that reminded me of the trackers for the Vive, for the sensors. Let's see what we got going on here in comments. Angel Gadget, can you read that? Michael, I saw your active heater. So
my active heater probably still wasn't hot enough. So I used a PTC ceramic heater that was recommended by other people who contacted me after the initial Enclosed into 5 videos. I went to a local eBay. I got, I think, a 500 watt one, and then I ended up adding a second 500 watt one. But as the person who was very helpful, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but as they explained, you can't measure it the same way as you can with other heaters, so it still struggled to get up to high temps. I did experiment with buying a really cheap heat gun and looking at taking off the outer housing and mounting it carefully in the corner, but I don't think I'd do that type of thing on the channel because it's just a bit too risky for someone to follow along. But it's an option. Another person who contacted me who had a really good setup, and I featured in that video, like I said, they just had lights on the inside so the camera could see, and they were the type of lights that gave off enough heat that because their chamber was really well insulated, it got it up to the temp they needed. Whereas mine's got gaps and all sorts of things like that. So I need to go back to the drawing board and improve my design, and then hopefully I'll need less active heating.
If there's anybody here watching that hasn't seen Michael Law's Teaching Tech on YouTube, let me add this picture here. Oops, let me close a couple things here. There it is. Took me a second. Anyway, here's Michael's channel over on YouTube, Teaching Tech, and he's just literally got zillions and zillions of videos covering pretty much everything 3D printing on a lot of different types of electronics. And if there's something you want to learn or know, I highly recommend subscribing to his channel. He's just got tons and tons and tons of great content here. And once again, that's Teaching Tech. Go take that back off. And we're back. I want to make sure I didn't forget that.
Thank you.
Let's see, I'm missing something here. And let's see, this picture here. Here's another something you designed.
So that's for the same sim rig driving. So the emergency stop, in case someone was freaking out as it was moving around, it was just on the floor, which means it's useless because you can't reach it from the chair. So I took a photo of the bracket on the side of the seat and then imported that into CAD and used it to trace all of the mounting holes. Well, they're not meant to be mounting holes, but there was holes in the bracket on the side of the seat. So I printed out just a flat, really quick version to verify that everything lined up. And once it did, I could go back and print out this part here. So there's 2 halves to it. One half holds the emergency stop. The other bit's got a little tray to hold a battery or phone or whatever else so it doesn't get flung about. And again, impossible to buy that part. It just doesn't exist. So yeah, 3D printing is absolutely fantastic for those type of things.
And this picture here, it looks like an ant farm. What is this?
That's exactly what it is. So I did a video halfway through last year on ant keeping. My daughter and I stumbled across a channel called Ants Canada, and I was inspired by that, and I decided I wanted to do it with the primary school kids. So I needed somewhere to store the ants, so I designed a 3D printed modular one. But for the particular ants I had, the cavities where they were meant to tunnel and nest and lay eggs and all of that were too big. So we had this leftover fish tank sitting around. So that was a nice project we did just before Christmas with my daughter. And that material is AAC, it's aerated concrete, also known as yatong, and it's got a few different names. But you can just carve it with a screwdriver, or I used a trimmer router. We kind of drew on the patterns we wanted with a pencil on the surface, and then I got the trimmer router and machined straight through. A lot of dust, but no real damage to the router. It's just really easy material to work with. And then the ants have moved in, and on the lower right is the big queen ant, and there's a whole bunch of brood developing, and hopefully with all this warm weather we're having, the colony's gonna get a lot bigger.
Let's see what we're current on comments. And this, it looks like a box for holding your battery packs.
Yeah, that's it. So I had a student design an electric go-kart a couple of years ago, and I liked it so much I ended up buying it off them. And one of the nice things about the go-kart was, instead of being powered by big, heavy car batteries, you used a series of lipos like you would get in drones or whatever other remote control gear. So it's an interchangeable battery cage. So I've got 3 sets of batteries, because the batteries only last about 10-15 minutes. That's the downside. But it's very quick with that 3D printed cage to undo 2 thumb screws, pull off the old one, put on the new one, and you're up and going again in about 2 minutes.
With my Hypercube, I have to print probably 30 or 40 parts on my printer, and I'm going to do them out of PETG. And in the last 3 years, I've never printed with PETG until today. So here's a test print I did for a stepper motor. It's out of blue ZYLTECH PLA or PETG, and it came out perfect. The only settings I changed is I slowed my speeds down on my CR10 to 50 millimeters a second. That's at 0.2 millimeter layer height, 0.20. And let's see, the bed was at 70 and the temperature was at 230, and it came out great. So now it's currently printing in my hobby room. I've got 9 more parts loaded, and I'll keep loading, 5 to 10 based on what they look like until I get them all printed. And then I'm going to start doing a video series on showing the parts, building the frame will be one video, and then I'll just do multiple videos, maybe 5, 6, 7 videos, whatever it takes to eventually get it done and, show my progress building. If it's really cool, it's going to be a huge project.
Yeah, I don't use PETG that often myself. When I review printers, I use it to test if it's going to work. But similar to you, I use PLA presets, and then I'll just up the temperatures a bit. Generally, I find that's pretty much spot on, but I get a little bit worse stringing with PETG. So just yesterday, I was printing some on the end of 3. So these are for Hamera, which will be one of my next videos. So that's the adapter parts for an end of 3 to fit that on, with fan duct for stock and fan duct for a 50-15 blower. So hopefully I'll be able to cover both. But yeah, it's generally pretty easy filament to print with, I find, apart from that little bit of stringing. So
yeah, on mine I just had a couple strings on it, very little, and then I just pulled the brim off, and it came out great. So I'm real happy with the color and the quality. So a lot of times when I don't, same with TPU, I heard that TPU is crazy to print with, but I had no problems. My Capricorn tubing or Tough Tube from TH3D, and it's going into all metal hot. My extruder is all metal, and it's got a PTFE on the inlet, and on the outlet it's got a little metal rod, so it's real close to the gear, so it doesn't have room to back out and go crazy. And I had no trouble printing the TPU either. Gadget Angel, how many printers do we both have? I've got 7 printers and a resin printer. I've got, I think, 5 Ender 3s. 2 of them are pros. One I made 500 millimeters tall. I got a TiVo Tarantula Pro, and then I've got a spare Ender 3 for parts. And now I'm building a Hypercube. And you, Michael?
I think there's about 15 or 16 in this room, and about 4 resin printers in a dedicated room away from people because of fumes. Seems I'm always getting new boxes, pretty good problem to have. And I try to give away a lot to friends. And this year now, I'm launching a website, and one of the pages is going to have an area where local schools can go on and get them for free as well, because there's only so many I can use and fit, so might as well give them away rather than have them collecting dust somewhere. And
I need to give away a couple rolls of filament from ZYLTECH today. Let's see, let me show a picture here real quick. If I can find my picture. Okay, the first roll is going to be Uncle Jesse's, or no, that's Nikko's red lipstick. And then the second roll is going to be Uncle Jesse's gunmetal. And I haven't used Nikko's lipstick, but I have used Uncle Jesse's gunmetal, and it prints really nice. I'm sure the Nikko's does. So far, everything I've got from ZYLTECH prints really nice. And I want to thank Leslie Fleming from ZYLTECH for making this possible. And everybody that's watching in chat, if you would like to type in the word New Year, type in the word New Year, NEWYEAR, and we'll give away the first roll of filament. And we'll give everybody a couple minutes to type that in. And back onto some pictures. You've had a lot of, I've seen on the news, you have a lot of fires down there right now.
Yeah, it's been absolutely crazy. So that was just after Christmas, up on the roof cleaning out bark and leaves from the gutters. So we're back onto bush. Live in a really beautiful part of the world, Blue Mountains, which is about 2 hours inland from Sydney. But the fires have just been everywhere. So that's a map from last night. We have this app called Fires Near Me, and it updates all the fires in real time, so you can track and know if you need to evacuate and whatever else. As you can see, just the whole coast is just engulfed by fire. It's ridiculous. And that's Sydney on the right, and where the binoculars are is where I live. As you can see, there's you might hear news reports of Sydney being surrounded by fire. That shows it there. So I'm kind of in the middle of where it hasn't hit yet, and a lot of other communities have been hit badly. I think, fortunately, not many lives lost or properties lost, but all of the firefighters actually volunteers in Australia. There's two divisions. One is the people that go to car crashes and house fires, but all of the bushfires are all volunteers, and they're not even given proper masks or respirators. So there's a big push at the moment for people to donate to them so they can buy all the volunteers respirators so they don't go home coughing and spluttering after being out in the smoke all day. So
one thing, sorry, let me interrupt real quick. One thing I didn't mention, but it was listed in the stream on the video before that we came on, it's for USA only. So anybody that entered New Year, you need to be living in the US, and ZYLTECH will mail out that PLA if you're the winner. USA only, and you have to be on Facebook, because if you're on, you have to be on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, this Nightbot doesn't work on Facebook. So you need to be watching on YouTube, enter the word New Year, one word, and be in the USA. So if I made a mistake and told anybody the wrong thing, go ahead and retype that. Let's see. I'm sorry I interrupted you there.
No problem.
Let me reset eligibility, and I'm going to go ahead and draw here for the roll of Nikko's lipstick red and hit roll it. 3D Print Viking. Our winner is 3D Print Viking. Let's see. Something. 3D Print Viking. I got a banner there at the bottom of the screen. Please email me today with your name and your address here in the USA, and we'll get ZYLTECH. We'll get that roll of Nikko's red lipstick sent right out to you. And it's also below in the description. And then I think you know where I'm at on Facebook. So 3D printing and painting. But please email me today. I had done a giveaway a few months back, and somebody emailed me like a month later. It's like, where's my filament? It's like, well, you didn't email me, and then you're contacting me a month later. It's like, no, that ain't gonna work. So sorry about that.
I think that was a question a little bit up.
Okay, let me.
Tool changer. I think on the tool changer, I don't think I would buy their specific one. My trouble is I run out of room all the time for 3D printers, so I'm pretty selective with what I agree to review these days. It's got to be something interesting. Companies contacted me, it's just a clone of whatever other printer, so I always say no to those ones. Something like the E3D tool changer obviously is very novel and pushing things along, but I think Ernest, the guy who is the creator of Secit, is looking into it for the SK Go. So that's realistically when I'll look into it as well. Once he releases something to make it a bit more straightforward, I'll definitely explore it and make a video if it gets to that. Otherwise, I'm not sure.
And we have one more roll of PLA to give away. If you're watching on YouTube, you live in the USA, the word is going to be happy. So if you're in the USA and you're on YouTube watching right now and you'd like to get a free roll of ZYLTECH, Uncle Jessy, Gunmetal PLA, please enter the word happy in chat. HAPPY, happy. It's kind of fun hosting these. You got different things clicking on here, clicking on there, going to different tabs, looking at the camera. And my camera sits high, so when I'm looking at your face when you're talking, I'm looking down a little bit.
Yep, I understand.
Okay. 3D print biking is the one that won.
I know it's just used in Norway. I don't know if he's talking about 3D biking or if he's talking about itself.
3D print biking, are you in the USA? Yeah, Corey Mack says he's in Norway, but 3D print biking is the one that won, and he was in the USA. Anyway, my wife just popped in, just trying to make sure I get all this right. And once again, everybody enter the word happy on YouTube in the USA. If you'd like to win a roll of gunmetal silver, PLA, ZYLTECH, Uncle Jessy version.
It's a question from Ken, if you want to bring it up.
No, I'm not seeing it yet on StreamYard.
Ken Sturrock. A little bit up.
Oh, okay. What slicer do you use?
So Simplify 3D, because I paid for it years ago and I'm just used to it, and if I paid for it, I'm going to use it all the time. I'm generally pretty happy with it. Before that, I use Slick 3R or Slicer. And before that, I used, what's the name of it? Used to run off Python. It was really, really slow. It was before decent slicers came along. So if you were slicing a calibration cube, it might take 20, 25 minutes, whereas now we're used to seconds. I think it was SkyneForge. That was it. So I've always thought about doing the video, is Simplify 3D worth it? Because I see it gets asked over and over in Facebook groups and whatever else. But it might divide opinions too much, even if I try and stay really neutral. And it's also hard for me to be unbiased since I've been using it almost exclusively for years and years as well.
Okay, let me go ahead and roll it and see who the winner is of the PLA, Uncle Jessy from ZYLTECH. Kill Creations. Just want a roll of Uncle Jessy's gunmetal PLA, and I'll get a hold of ZYLTECH. Please send me your name and your address, and they'll get that sent right out to you. And let's go back to the first roll. I'm still trying to determine from chat. 3D Print Viking, are you in the USA? I think somebody said that he's over the pond. So I want to make sure that I got both winners.
The chat's disappeared for me, but is anyone from Australia by any chance?
No, I'm not seeing anybody from Australia pop up. And yes, I just use S3D. When I first got into printing, I figured if I'm going to spend all this money on printers, I would rather go with a paid program that I assumed at the time would be a lot better than Cura. And I've just, I paid $150 for it, and I've always used S3D. I'm retired, and all the free time I have, I could learn Cura, but I never have. I don't know the first thing about Cura.
I think what I really like about Cura is they're always pushing the boundaries with new functionality, like funny skin and ironing and all sorts of things like that. I think a fair criticism of Simplified 3D is they haven't really updated much in a while, but there is that paid update on the horizon. So I'll be interested to see how much that is and what features they add and how much value there is. But I agree with you. If you've always used Cura, you're probably used to it, but I find it frustrating to find the settings I want in Cura, partly because they're called something different in other slices. So I've got to scroll through a lot of things and then expand and tick what I'm after. I don't think that's as intuitive as other programs where everything's laid out, but it's in tabs, so you're not overwhelmed by too much information on the screen.
Okay, I just seen a skewed view said no, he's overseas, so we're gonna have to redraw for the Nikko's lipstick red from ZYLTECH. Let me get a word in here. The word is going to be awesome. AWESOME, awesome. Everybody on YouTube watching, please enter the word awesome, and you need to be in the USA only. If I was giving away ZYLTECH, which I'm not today, that covers worldwide depending on which person I go through, but ZYLTECH is USA only. So everybody please enter the word awesome.
So another question from Gadget Angel.
What 3D design software do you use?
So my choice is shaped by being a teacher. So we have kids coming with PCs, with Macs, with not Linux, but PC or Mac, some kids with tablet style. So for my school, I picked for us to use Onshape because all they've got to do is make an account and they're up and going. So I know Fusion 360 is really popular, but when you think about trying to teach a lesson and you tell all the kids they have to go on, find a file, download it, they've got different operating systems, different hardware, that's realistically is going to eat up probably 2 or 3 lessons, which is a week of lessons. So because of that, I chose Onshape for school and I've stuck with it since. And because it was made by the people, I think they branched off from SolidWorks. That's the first one I learned when I was at uni back in the day. So I find it really familiar. I've also used Inventor in the past, a little bit of Fusion 360, 123D Design a while ago. And occasionally I use Tinkercad if I've got something super simple.
A skewed view, you're the winner of the lipstick red from ZYLTECH, Nikko's brand, or Nikko's, yeah, it's got his name brand on it. So skewed view, please email me. My email is down below in the comments, or I can re-pull it up here on the screen. Yeah, right here, here's my email, skewed view. Show them if you want to email me your name and address, and ZYLTECH will get that sent out to you right away. I'll contact their rep. And also contact me on Facebook. I love giving away stuff. So, it's just a matter of me contacting companies and see if they want to, help the stream out and donate. And ZYLTECH has been, and Arion has been very helpful whenever I've asked them. They've been there for me.
So question from Raider FPV, a couple up.
You're welcome to just jump in and start reading them. I don't have to pull them up on the screen.
Sure.
Even though I'm hosting, you're the star of the show. Whoever my guest is, need to do.
Okay, so question. So it sounds like your bed is leveled nicely, but it's inconsistent, or is it because of the stringing? Some stringing. So I'm not sure. Does the stringing is what causing the filament to drag, or the first layers already don't lay down, and then the loose bits from that are causing the print to come loose? If you can type. I think I could try and answer both. So on my in my start G code, I'd have a really big introduction line just to purge everything out. And I find for PLA that it's fat enough, it kind of starts to wrap around the nozzle a little bit, and then it'll catch any loose bits, and then the first layer will go down cleanly. If you are having inconsistency with the first layer, because if you level the bed and you get a good first layer, unless you knock the machine or something, it should be repeatable, unless it's a removable top layer that you put on and off and maybe it's changing very slightly. So if it's not being repeatable, you'd have to look at something mechanical as part of that setup. Only certain prints. Okay, so if it's a different filament, maybe you have a different temperature for your heated bed and therefore it expands that little bit more, and that could be, that minuscule amount could be enough to change the distance between the nozzle and the bed and make it over or under extrude depending on the distance, and maybe that's what's causing the problem.
He says he does a purge line and skirt.
Yep, that's good. Definitely good to do. If it is inconsistent with the homing, maybe your end stop micro switch has worn out or it's got a bit of play, or you might want to check the tightness of the mount. And failing that, you could switch it to an optical one where it visually trips it. Just got to be careful that you don't have any debris fall off and block it. But worst case for that is it'll home too high rather than not homing and smashing through the bottom. And the other thing, potentially maybe the springs on your bed, you could get some stiffer springs. Maybe you're getting a bit of wobble. When it wobbles side to side, it changes the height just that little bit. So yeah, just look at the machine and look for anything that could be variable in your setup, and hopefully there's something obvious there.
Gadget Angel is asking, Michael, do your kids get involved with 3D printing? I think they're too young at the moment, right?
Yeah, they're too young to really do any CAD design and things like that. Sometimes I'll get them to help me pick out prints for review videos. So at the moment I've got a couple of resin printers I'm doing. My daughter just got a dollhouse, so we're going to pick out some furniture and miniatures and things like that to go in the dollhouse. Yeah, that's the extent of it at this stage. I've got a really simple 3D design app on their tablets, but they're not really interested in it yet.
When they get a little bit older, it's going to be like Santa's workshop at your house. I mean, there's just going to be all this stuff they can do and print and make, and daddy this and daddy make me this and daddy make me that.
I think they're desensitized. They can probably name half my printers by looking at them. They know which one they end at 3 years and Mark III and the CR10 Max and whatever else. So yeah, they might not think it's anything special because they're just used to it.
My wife hates me talking about 3D printing to her. I do it constantly because I don't have nobody else to talk to because my dogs don't understand, or they can't talk back, but they probably understand. And she probably knows more about 3D printing than she lets on because she hears me talk to her about this, that, and other constantly every day. And I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, and I might walk in there and talk to her about 3D printing. So I'm surprised she hasn't thrown a book at me yet. But
sounds like she's a good listener and patient.
Yeah, she's made a comment. This is so true. She's Betty Boot 45 on YouTube. Let's see, and then pictures. Here's a picture. I believe this is you and your wife there in Australia.
It hasn't come up for me yet, but assuming everyone can. Yep, that's the one. So that was a momentous occasion. So in December, end of December, we have our wedding anniversary. We normally go and stay at the same place. And that was wedding anniversary 2 years ago when we had a conversation and I decided I'm going to have a crack at YouTube. So recently when we celebrated our anniversary again, we reflected on that. So I thought it was a nice picture to include. She has been in a couple of videos. Sorry.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I did a 3D scanned her for one video, and then I 3D printed a bust. I did a cleanup video in Mesh Mixer, and I plan to have her in a future video as well. I'm reviewing like a 3D printing online help service. So I figured since she doesn't do any 3D printing and she would describe herself as not mechanically minded, she's a good guinea pig to see if she can read the instructions and do what they say. Because sometimes it's hard. I think once you've been doing something for a long time, it's hard to remember how you were as a beginner. And I notice that in comments sometimes people say, you don't need to do that because this is so easy. But when you're starting out, you don't know those answers. And when you search for them, you get so many different opinions that it's hard to find the one that's accurate or the one that works best for you. So yeah, it's good to get some fresh meat, so to speak, a guinea pig in there with a different perspective to look at things.
I have a Connect scanner I bought a long time ago at a thrift store, and I've done a scan of myself and done a simple print. I haven't really got into it much, but I would like to get more into it inexpensively and do a better scan and maybe a full body scan and print it out. That'd be cool. Because most of the models and statues I like to print, fairly large things.
They're really good for fast scanning, I find. in the past, I did a structured light scanner, and everything just had to be so perfect. The room had to be really dark. All the angles need to be right, calibration beforehand. And I've got the Creality structured light scanner ready to test here. So I'll see if things have improved or not on that. But generally, they're really accurate, but there's a lot of investment each time you want to use it in setting it up. So I'd be interested to see if things have improved or not.
Here's a current picture I took today of my hobby room, which used to be a dining room in my house. And there you can see the Mandalorian helmet in the background on my camera and light when I do different filming. And on that big long table that has the Mandalorian helmet, that's my new printer, my Hypercube Evolution from ZYLTECH that I just got. So it's going to be a lot of videos and a lot of work building that. And then my enclosure to the right there, my CR10, and then I have I got a TiVo, a bunch of Ender 3s. Anyway, lots of stuff going on there. And I got I can paint over in the corner or outside. So
it's a nice setup. It's good to have a dedicated space.
Are these Yorkies, your doggies?
Yeah, so my wife and I had dogs for about 14 years, and unfortunately they both passed away this year.
Oh.
So we had a family Christmas present to have some new dogs. So we got these puppies a few weeks ago, and yeah, they're stupidly cute. It's hard to get them to sit still for photos, but anyone that sees them in real life just instantly loves them. They either want to sleep and do nothing or wrestle with each other and chew your fingers. So bit of a handful at the moment, but yeah, we love them, and it's been really nice to have them in the house over the holiday break. And I think I might make a video to do with them in future, possibly. Thinking about designing an open source like ball throwing machine, similar to those pitching ones you get in sport, where it's got the rotating reel and you drop the ball in the top and it flings out. I don't know if something like that.
Yeah, I've seen one for a cat where it spins around in a circle and the cat's chasing it for cats. I don't currently have a cat. I have my daughter-in-law is allergic to cats, so we currently just have 2 dogs here. So when they come over and visit, she doesn't have an allergic reaction. But with all the printers around and the heated beds, it's kind of good that I don't have a cat. They might be laying on it, getting hair in it, getting burnt, messing, knocking the prints off the shelf. So cats think it's fun to tear things up, and they enjoy doing it.
Cats do like to lie in all the wrong places from what I've seen.
And I think that's about it on the comments. And we've been going here for, what's it been? A little over an hour. It's 5:02 here right now, PM. So I'd like to we're going to get going here in just a minute. I'd like to say to everybody out there, please like and subscribe. I am up to 993 subscribers on YouTube. I'm trying to get over 1,000. And I was going to do another small giveaway if I got over 1,000 before the live stream, but I didn't. So maybe for the next video. I still need to get my watch hours up and, to get monetized, but at least getting over the 1,000 hurdle. One of these days I'll start growing faster and try to get more content out there, and it could get me more excited. But I'd like to thank everybody that's, came by or is watching today. Michael, stick around for just a minute and I'll get right back with you. But I want to thank you very much for being on the stream, Michael. And,
thank you for having me. And thank you for everyone watching and for the questions and comments and kind words.
Okay, 1 second, please. Anyway, yeah, please like and subscribe, everybody. I would appreciate it. Here in a couple days, I'm going to try to get a video out of my Hypercube Evolution from ZYLTECH that I'm going to start building. It's going to be a video series. I'm not sure how many videos it will be, but I'll build it in different stages and tape it and get it posted on YouTube. But I really appreciate you. Like I said, I haven't done a video in a couple months. I've been kind of slow on the live streams. We got a new year, so maybe I can pick it up and do a lot better. Thank you very much for coming by, everybody. I really appreciate it, and you have a great day, and happy printing.